Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today's topic is on minority voting, and as we get closer to the election, it is a topic that is very important to discuss. I was very fortunate to sit down with my good friend Ben Henderson, a field representative in the California State Senate, and we discussed a bunch of things, like voter suppression and turning out for things other than the presidential race. My hope is when you're done with this episode, you will go find your own truths in politics and exercise them the best way you can by voting. Without further ado, welcome, Ben Henderson, and welcome to Come As You Are. Made you want to jump into this and pursue it somewhat as a career?
Um, I would say it started when I was at San Jose State.
Mhm.
My last year there, I ran for president of Associated Students and ended up becoming president. And we did a march to protest a student fee increase in the whole CSU higher education system. And we ended up preventing close to, I think, about $90 million worth of cuts in the California higher education system. And we had the governor come out at the, no, the lieutenant governor come out. It was John Garamendi at the time, the president pro tem of the Senate, the speaker of the assembly. We had thousands of students come out. And that just really inspired me. I mean, to be able to uh, be a part of that movement and for that to make a difference for so many students and that collective effort that we did, I was like, okay, I definitely want to continue in politics. And I definitely see the power of when people come together for a positive cause. And that's one of the things that really motivated me. But even before then, um, my dad's actually 85,
Mhm.
and he grew up in Texas. He's seen a lot of discrimination, racism, and so we'd always have political conversations. And then my mom too, growing up in Oakland, you know, uh, in like 60s, 70s, sometime around there, right?
Mhm.
So like their impact on me, seeing how politics and race and economics can have an impact, that is what actually led me to even want to run for office as well. So just combining how I grew up and then wanting to make a difference and actually seeing how when people come together, it can make a difference. That's what made me want to be in the state government right now.
So, in our next clip, Ben and I discuss what led to such a significant drop off in the 2016 election, and why it's so important to pay attention to every candidate on a ballot, not just the top of the ballot. A drop off in a population not wanting to vote, that's crazy. And then not only that, but young minorities in particular, like that 21 to 35 range, kind of where we are, like that bunch in particular
Mhm.
seems like it was a really steep drop off. I think that was something almost like a 14 to 16% drop off. So,
Mhm.
you know,
So the first thought that comes to my mind is that I think it's hard now for people because some people feel like their vote doesn't matter as much.
yeah.
And like you said, like being energized to want to vote and having a candidate that you say, okay, well, I can relate to this person. This is someone that I feel is really going to represent my interest. And that's one of the contributing factors that I think of for the the drop off
Hmm.
is some people probably didn't feel as connected. And actually this one right here, the polls actually were saying that Trump was going to win by like 90-95% or something.
Hmm.
And so people are like, okay, well, if Hillary's going to win anyway, I mean, what's the point of me voting,
Right. Why am I even
right?
going to go out? Yeah. If it's just a done
Why
deal.
even go out, right? And
Right.
so I think the polls were just way off, and
Hmm.
that really had a factor too, because I feel like a lot of people were thinking, hey, well, I mean, Hillary's going to win, Trump is going to lose. And overall, actually, I have to emphasize this is that people look at the presidential race, right, and people voter turnout is usually higher during the presidential race, but in reality, the down ballot candidates, those are the actual races that actually impact people's lives, probably even more than the president.
I was just
And
thinking that same thing. Yep, absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and I feel like sometimes some people can kind of forget that, and that part can kind of get overlooked. Yes, the president is important, but everyday things like your pothole, I mean, that's going to be like your city council. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
president
yeah.
of the United States isn't going to come and fix that.
Yeah, exactly. Like he
Yeah,
ain't driving
yeah.
down the street talking about, hey, you got potholes that need to be picked up. No,
Yeah, man.
100%.
That's was my whole campaign slogan. I'll fix those potholes for you. Yeah.
You put on a bumper sticker, Joe Biden, he'll fix your potholes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Another thing we hear quite often is, oh, my voice doesn't matter. What can I do? A little fun fact, since 1984, there's been less than 10% margin of victory between president challenger and the popular vote. So now more than ever, it's important to have the people's voice heard and get out there and vote.
I think Georgia has this thing called exact match system
Mm-hmm.
to where it requires like the individual voting status to be suspended if their name on their driver's license or social security record
Mm-hmm.
doesn't match exactly the name on their voter registration form. And so there's little things like that that can have a impact on voter suppression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and actually to answer your question too about what we can do is there's the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's been really big, the ACLU, and like what you said, like educating people. I feel like that's really important, and people seeing how politics can affect their lives, right? Like I've never heard like corporations say, oh well, you know, we're not going to spend all this money on lobbying
Mm-hmm.
because they have a ton of money that they spend on lobbying every year. And normally wealthy people vote and are involved in politics because they see how it can benefit them and
Mm-hmm.
they see the results of how things benefit them. Like, for example, even with tax loopholes, like President Trump, for example, what he only paid like $750 in taxes,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
so, and
Meanwhile, I'm going to
that's,
jail.
yeah, oh yeah, like Wesley Snipes and everything
Yeah,
goes into
absolutely.
jail, you know
You
what I
got
mean?
to do some time if you
Yeah,
don't find
yeah.
those loopholes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you know, and it's really letting people know that not just collectively voting, but I would say collective economics as a whole, right? If you have the power of economics and the power of voting combined, then you can sway politicians to act in a certain way for you in so many regards because they have to listen to you. Because when you affect that pocketbook and you can rock the vote, then that's a whole different story.
As you know, there aren't too many young black men who see who get a chance to see somebody like you, who's went to law school, who's actually gone and done things that are stuff that you never hear about people in our community doing. If you ran across a kid and let's just say it was young you, what would you tell them to give them the spark to pursue something like this?
Um, I would say the one of the things actually I do some mentoring for My Brother's Keeper in Stockton,
Awesome.
and we have a lot of you know, young men who come from at-risk environments.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I bring up to them is just my background, some of the things that I've been through. And I just start off with this, and that is number one, know how beautiful you are, right? Because I feel like a lot of times in our society as Black men, we're shown images of us being gangsters, thugs, and all this negativity. And I just want to say to them, like, first look at your dark skin and be proud of who you are, and understand your history. And that is number one, because self-love, once you have that self-love, the more love you can give to other people. So I'd start off with that. And then for me, I would tell them about how, because actually with law school, I, didn't get accepted anywhere when I first applied. And it was a long process for me, a lot of bumps in the road. So I would say, hey, I mean, there's going to be some difficulty. It's going to be hard, but just stay with it and know that you can do it. Know that you can overcome it. And once you get there, it'll all be worth it. And then you see how everything came together. And yeah, I mean, I feel like the personal story like that is like one of the best ways to connect with our youth.
There's always a need for accountability. There's always a need for someone looking out to make sure that you have, especially in that arena, to make sure that you don't have just a special interest group's interest at heart. That you went there saying, I'm going to represent a state, or I'm going to represent a delegation, and this is who I'm beholden to. To make sure that they know, like, this is what you promised when you said you were going to do this. Now you got to actually get up and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, another thing that definitely is important when it comes to voting is the Citizens United Supreme Court decision, basically, which allows unlimited money into campaigns. Particularly, we're looking at the federal level because that's where you're going to spend a lot of money to run for office. And so when you have all this money coming in, that can drown out the average person's vote. And that's why citizens have to get out there and really vote, because if not, corporations are going to make sure that their interests are heard.
Yeah.
And whoever is putting all that money out there, not to say all corporations are bad, because they do serve a purpose, they do provide jobs, but at the same time, it's not just about their interests being heard, but ours as a people, our interests being heard as well. So that's another reason why people should get out there and vote as well.
Absolutely.
So my mom and I have this, it is a voting, it's a poll tax that my grandfather paid when he used to live in Texas. And we have it framed just to remind us of all the struggle and all the things that people did just for us to have the right to vote. And just to connect that past to that present, because we see some voter suppression going on now. Like, for example, in California with unofficial ballot boxes and all that. We can get into that maybe another time. But just in general, like when you see and you realize all the things that people did for us to have what we have today, I feel like that should give us some sense of responsibility, so what they did wasn't in vain. So we can honor our ancestors of how they laid the path for us to have what we have today. And I just want to end it with that.
I ain't got no more. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. You have a good rest of your night.
Okay.
I couldn't do nothing after that one, man.